in one age, called the Third Age by some,
An age yet to come.
an age long past.
A wind rose on the Geek at Arms podcast.
The wind was not the beginning,
There are neither beginnings,
nor endings to the turning of the Wheel of Time.
but it was a beginning.
Welcome to Woolheads, a Wheel of Time podcast by Geek at Arms. I'm Brian, and here's a man that I think surely must be Taviran. It's James.
The light illume you, Brian.
And you as well, James. It's time to talk about Seeds of Shadow, Episode 3 of Season 3 of the Wheel of Time. If you've listened to us before, you know the drill, but if you haven't, spoilers ahead. We'll compare the books to the show, and we don't hold back on talking about the deeper lore. So if you don't want to know what's coming, find a different podcast. I hear Geek at Arms is good.
Or, don't go to a different podcast. Stay here. We're not your boss. Do what you want to do.
Right. But you have only yourself to blame because we warned you.
Exactly.
So as the title suggests, we get a good look at the antagonists in this episode.
Yes.
Leads off with a meeting among the Forsaken.
Which
We see Elaida Sedai plotting to destabilize the Amerlin seat, and we learn a little bit about Liandrin's intentions in Tanchico.
And everyone finds out that the gentleman, Lord Gabriel, I believe his name was, who was just a bit weird, just a bit off, and everyone was acting strange at first around, is absolutely one of the Forsaken. So if you thought something was dodgy with that guy, well done, your instincts are true.
Yes, I'm glad that they didn't leave us dangling on that for too long, because I would have felt silly pretending I don't know who he is.
Right.
So I had a lot of fun at the expense of Moraine's hat last time, but I have since learned a little bit about it. Apparently, it was handmade by a local who lives near the location. Pike said in an interview that a lot of the Aiel's costumes and goods were locally crafted.
I've really liked their costumes for the most part, where it looks like the garb of a people who, have a hard time making their own fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is very utilitarian, and a lot of thought and care goes into, we're desert people. We run everywhere. We have no we don't use horses. So what we do have on us is going to be light, breezy, and not anything extra. Like very little. Well, you would think very little in the way of ornamentation or affectation, but there's a couple of the characters in this show which just throw that right out the window.
Savannah, anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I really appreciate the fact that since they're using local artisans who are, they're using the materials that they have in their environment, and they're making clothing and gear that works in that environment. And so it gives a real sense of authenticity, because here we are in that environment and everything fits.
It makes you really believe these are people who live in a desert.
Mm-hmm. In the same interview, Pike also talked a little bit about some earrings that she'd been given by a fan, and she wore them in at least one episode in season 2, which I think
that's cool.
That's classy. That's a nice gesture.
Completely agree. I feel like, and we discussed this in the last season, that the showrunners are really listening to the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And the power of fans has shown that if they really care passionately about something, change can happen. If you doubt that, just take a look at Sonic the Hedgehog. The first movie.
That's an extreme case of it, yes.
True, but the fact that it happened at all says a lot. So I believe that they are listening to the fans, and not like we hate this, you didn't, Rand's hair wasn't part of the correct way as described in page 428 of The Great Hunt, and Bat rolled his dice 3 times, not 2. Not those people, okay?
Right.
We don't have any use for those people, but they are listening to proper critique and suggestions, and I think that shows not just in what we're seeing in the story and the character progression, but also just in the how these characters are directed.
Yeah. And Pike actually talked on that very topic in the same interview. She pointed out one particular thing where a few fans had complained that Moiraine Sedai put her boots on the bed. And she said at the time, well, I'm inferring this. She didn't actually say this, but I can imagine that at the time she was thinking this is a woman who has to get up and go at a moment's notice, and so of course she's going to sleep with her boots on. But as the fans pointed out, she's also a noblewoman, and that's not going to go away either. And so later on in I don't remember if it wasn't in this season because I don't think we saw her lying in a bed here, but later on in season 2, she did take her boots off when she went to bed because she's like, you know what, the fans are right about this, and it's not something that a hill I'm gonna die on.
I can just imagine if Moraine Sedai lays down with her boots on her bed and suddenly has a flashback to herself as a teenager in Carrion, and her mother comes in. Were you raised in a barn, young lady? Get those off your bed this instant.
Oh, it's Kyrie Enan.
Yeah.
So it would have just been a slight tightening of the mouth and a glance away, and that says it everything.
Very true. Very true. Sorry, mother. Sorry. My deepest apologies. Deepest apologies.
And since we're on that topic, she also talked in that interview a little bit about what her producer credit entails. My impression that I've gotten is that a lot of times actors' producer credits are kind of symbolic. They're there for prestige and maybe to get a little bit of creative control. But it sounds like she's really diving into the business aspect of the job.
Mm-hmm.
She's talked about helping to choose music cues, understanding the budgets, helping with the casting. It sounds like she's really taking the opportunity to invest in her career moving forward. I'm curious to see where she goes from here.
Agreed.
On to other matters of the production. I noticed Perrin's contacts are working much better this season than Elias's did.
Yes.
I don't know if they're doing VFX touch-up when they slip, or maybe they just have a lens that fits him better. But they're really sticking on his irises.
Mm-hmm. And they're much, much more noticeable than they were in earlier seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Elias's were like a little too much, I think. It's like they covered too much of his eye. Perrin's, I think his eyes were always CG in season 2.
Gotcha. Maybe it's something that they found some lenses that fit and that looked good, but then also that they were easy for the effects crew to go back to and do touch-up work on.
Yeah. And as somebody who has done eye glows so many times, I worked on Teen Wolf and there were eye glows upon eye glows. It's not a very difficult task, especially when you've got these nice, as we mentioned, the cinematography is gorgeous. We don't have people whose faces are half in shadow all the time like Teen Wolf did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's easy to track those things on there. If you need to make a change, then it can be done. And there's not really a reason to have a situation like what we had with Elias where the lens was just wandering off of the iris.
Making him look like Mike. Okay, I know he's a wolf man, but do wolf men have lazy eyes? Because I'm getting a bit of lazy eye off him right now.
Well, maybe they do. Maybe they do.
So when they go in the wolf dream, their eyes just kind of drift off.
Right. Well, when you're looking at the real world and the dream world at the same time, it's just hard to keep everything tracking.
Yeah. Elias, can you come out of the wolf dream? I'm in the you're cross-eyed man. I can't talk to you like this.
Does Loyal seem smaller in this season? Okay,
yes.
I thought I was imagining things.
No, he is definitely. I mean, by season 5, if we get there, which I'm sure we will, Perrin's going to be taller than him.
It's like, I'm quite sure that you were taller than Nynaeve before.
I'm fairly certain that as Loyal shrinks, Perrin's hair gets bigger.
Well, that does seem to be the case, yes.
Yeah. So at this point, he's going to have to build himself an extra story to every Two Rivers building just for his hair. Either that, at he's going to have to start tying it back like Shepherd Book.
Yeah, at least it looks natural.
Yes.
Have you seen Foundation?
It's on my list of things to watch.
Now, there's a character in there whose hair, it just kind of goes up in this column, and it looks like she's wearing Abraham Lincoln's hat, except it's just her hair. It's like, that does not look
Speaking of
Right. That's just weird.
Speaking of Abraham Lincoln's hat, it makes an appearance in this episode, and we'll get to that later.
I guess I missed that.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to Copland talk in a minute.
Well, I only had one more thing to comment about on in the production, and that was that I really like that they hung a lantern on Moraine taking so many baths.
I missed that part.
When they're in the sweat tent, and you can just see their Moraine and Lan are kind of complaining to each other just through eye contact.
Yeah.
And he says, "You're really going to miss your baths."
That was a good line. That was well done. Oh.
Did you have anything more to say about the production?
Yes, I did. There was a much awaited duel in this fight, a
Yes.
practice duel, swords versus staff. And for the vast majority of it, I was very happy with how it looked, the beats, the counter beats, the footwork, um, and so much more. Couple of gripes about it, but it's never going to be perfect. That's fine. But you can tell they gave a lot of thought. It's like, okay, one man with a staff against two guys with swords. How are we going to make this look believable and look good? And honestly, just the fact that it got included made me happy, and they didn't make a hash of it. So, well
Yeah,
done.
I really appreciated at the very beginning of the fight when Matt's settling into this weird looking stance. But I'm like, it looks peculiar, but that is an accurate staff fighter stance. It's like, that was really cool.
Yeah. I looked at it as that he was, well, I mean, we know he was taught by his dad. If there's two things in the two rivers, everyone knows how to fight with. It's a staff and it's a bow. And I figured that he was just kind of going back to remembering all of that, remembering the stance that his dad taught him, and also maybe was access some of those memories as well.
Yeah, I think that was definitely happening.
But yeah, he took it to he took it to the Andor boys, as they're referred to. But let's move on. I'll have more to say about that in a little bit.
I actually have a little bit more to say about that in my Copland talk, so let's just go ahead and continue.
Let's just get straight to that.
It's not much. I was disappointed that they didn't have an audience.
Agreed.
I think Gawain's attitude toward Matt was in large part formed from that humiliation of being beaten in front of the warders and the younglings.
Yeah.
And there's a basis for it as it stands, but I think it could have been a more powerful storyline and a more interesting relationship between the two if there had been a crowd present and he was, trying to make up for that humiliation.
As I said in last episode, I really would have enjoyed to hear the line from the head warder, who was the greatest swordsman of all time. And, say he was beaten by a farmer, points at Matt with a staff. But as far as like anger of the two, Gawain and Galad, Galad definitely shows his anger and frustration. I mean, every time that he receives a hit, which almost literally takes him to his knees or on his stomach, you can see him hitting the ground, smacking the ground with his sword, getting it and losing his cool. And this is the beginning of fighting with anger. And you fight angry, you're going to die angry.
Yeah, I think in Galad's case, if they adhere to his personality from the book, which is by no means a guarantee, but while he gets angry and he gets frustrated, it's almost certainly directed internally. He's mad at himself. He can't believe that this peasant is beating him.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
But Gawain is going to be angry at Matt because he can't, at least as he was written in the books, he can't take responsibility for his own stuff. He's always directing it outward.
We shall see. But speaking of responsibility, I think that we need to put some responsibility and some punishment on whoever the designer was that came up with the design for the Aes Sedai rings.
Yeah, I don't care for him either.
I mean, we got some close-ups of them again in this episode, and there's a lot that this series gets is done a great job with aesthetically. The
Hmm.
rings is at the bottom of the list, in my opinion. They
See,
look.
I always imagined that the ring, the serpent eating its own tail, the serpent actually encircling the finger.
I always imagine like if they're gonna put a color in it, because I never saw that there being a stone in the ring that like shows which Aja they belong to. I'm like
Hmm.
that one that's represented in the clothing that they wear, and also just they just know they that's so and so she's in blue. That's Aes Sedai, so and so she's yellow. They just know these things because they're Aes Sedai and because they have a thing called memory. Um,
And because they tend to wear the same color clothing as their Aja all the time.
Exactly. So making this giant, bulky, awkward, and frankly uncomfortable looking ring
Hmm.
with their Aja's color in it was it no
I mean,
sorry
that's just going to
fail.
get caught on things all the time.
Yes, it's it's going to weigh down the hand. It's going to cause early onset arthritis. You're going to have to see the Yellow Sisters all the time, and who has time for that?
Right.
But yeah, I always saw a serpent eating its own tail, very very slim, very streamlined, very refined looking.
Hmm.
And they just like, nope, let's make it big. Let's make it look like a Super Bowl ring, but not as good.
We need to make sure that the white cloaks can see it from 400 yards away.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's too late to hide it. They saw you coming a county over.
Like, well, yes, I
I
know you're
think
Aes Sedai. Why? Because you have a giant tan line on your finger. Literally goes from knuckle to knuckle.
I'm not sure if I care to the for the changes that they're making to the White Tower's culture and operations either.
Yeah.
Like Liane being able to just waltz into the Reds' quarters
Mm-hmm.
and knowing exactly who the highest is. I mean, that was like a big secret. All the Ajas kept their leader's
And
secret.
accepted. Just I've got the accepted ring now. I'm just gonna walk my butt out.
Yeah.
You are bound to
No,
us. I'm bound to nothing. See ya. Like,
yeah.
no. That's not how that goes.
The Aes Sedai politics were so detailed in the books, and they're just being overly simplified.
I mean,
And it's such a
there had to be some simplification. There
yeah,
absolutely
but
had to be, but it's being ham fisted here.
yeah, and it's I mean, they're making such a point to enhancing and deepening the cultures in other ways. Like I realized a couple of days ago that I jumped the gun on talking about the funeral scene because that beautiful apple orchard scene is in this episode, not
Mm-hmm.
episode two. But they're doing things like that, but they're making kind of a caricature of the Aes Sedai culture,
Yeah, and
which is weird.
once again, we get a view of is does the Amerlin really have as much power as she's supposed to have? Because
Mm,
they're not doing a good job of showing the reverence and the respect that is supposed to be there from all the Aes Sedai.
yeah, I mean, I can forgive Elaida
Yeah.
being that way because she is who she is, and we know what her trajectory is. But the others, and the Reds always resented Swan Sanche in
Yeah.
the book, but everybody else, yeah, there's not any reverence for the office or for the person sitting on this throne.
And jumping ahead to happy things. Thank you once again for casting who you cast as Elida. Thank you so much.
I was thinking about that as like she's a wonderful casting for
Yes.
Elaida.
Mm-hmm.
She would have been even better as Cadswain.
Oh.
But
You know what? I, have they cast
I'm
Catstone
happy to
yet?
get her earlier. Not to my knowledge, she doesn't come
Okay.
in for at least a couple books yet.
Yeah, you're right.
And if they're nervous about really being able to take the story all the way to its conclusion, get the woman in now.
Yeah.
Make her a Lida.
No, she's I'm not going to say her name because every time I do, I butcher it.
Yeah, don't want to insult her by mispronouncing it,
and neither
as
do
we
I. I want to hear her
always
say
do.
it just because I want to hear her voice again. Um, but she would have made an absolutely phenomenal Catswain. But don't. I'm not upset about her being
Mhm.
Elaida at all.
Me
She
neither.
brings such depth and gravity to the role. Um, Back to Copland talk. Speaking of the person for the role, um, I feel like that at this point, and I don't remember what she was doing at this point in the books. I feel like that they're not sure what to do with Min.
Yeah.
Like they keep plugging her into different roles and then having her run away from those roles. And I'm like, you guys just really don't know what to do with her, do you?
Yeah, her story got so twisted up and weird because they skipped Barlon. That
Yeah.
one decision, and I think we said that at the time that man, skipping Barlon's going to change a lot.
Yep.
And we're just seeing that ripple out. And skip, actually, I think it was Camelin that we complained about mostly. They seem to have mostly smoothed over Camelin, but the not getting Min so early has been
Well,
weird.
everything. Yeah, they skipped over Camelin, and it. I was really hoping to get to Camelin, and the fact
Yeah,
that it did get skipped, I'm like, one, it made me unhappy, but also I'm like, I feel like this is gonna make some problems later in the story. But I don't know. I don't know. Um, it's like they traded out Camelin for Karien, and um,
yeah.
well, it is what it is. Um, I want to talk about the Aiel for a second, or
Hmm.
specifically one Aiel, Ruark.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure they got the right guy to play him.
He does have kind of a Bruce Campbell look to him.
A little bit, and he's just. I saw him, and I'm like, okay, he's. I don't know if Ruark was mentioned as being a stout fellow, but no offense to you, sir, but um, you're a little bulky for an Aiel.
I think he would have been a great choice for I think it was Huon, who was noted as being just like the biggest of the Isle chiefs.
Yes, that I'd have been fine with that. I always saw Ruark. If Ruark was, I always saw him. If he was a bigger man, it's because he was big in the shoulders,
Mm.
and just the way that he moves is not like how I envision an Aiel moves, and not like we've seen other Aiel moves. He's just like this. Does not, he does not even jog like a man who does a lot of running, and kind of just bounces along one foot to the other, really wishing that he was wearing his Nikes instead of those Aiel boots. But I may be being overly critical, but I Ruark was one of my favorite Aiel
Hmm.
characters, and so I'm holding it to a higher standard than I would some of the others.
Yeah.
Um,
And related to him, it's pretty clear now that they have indeed combined Bear and Amis into one character.
yeah.
And that disappoints me because Bear was a favorite of mine.
Hmm.
And I don't foresee this version of the character with Amis's temperament getting many of Bear's best lines.
Agreed.
And it's
Agreed.
I'm gonna miss him.
So, um, when Perrin returns to the Two Rivers, which I was very happy about,
Hmm.
happy he was there, um, and we meet two figures. One who I was very happy to meet, the other meh, very meh, especially when I discovered that this is supposed to be Lord Luke. Like, oh, this is Lord Luke. He's a hunter for the horn. I'm like, brother, you look like you own a tavern down in Maidenhead. Okay, you don't look like a lord of nothing except maybe um you know, a fabric wagon going around and selling to folks in villages. You don't look noble. I always imagined Lord Luke looking more like heroic, more like a paladin type character, and someone who could ride in, defeat Trollocs, and toss you their heads. Um,
Well, at the very least, he should look like the royal line of Ondor.
it's exact who he's claiming to be. Yeah, and
Well, I don't think he ever claimed to be, but he actually I forget exactly how that went. It was like he was Tigraine's brother.
Something like that. Yes, he was definitely noble lined. Um, there's a whole thing. I read up on his history a little bit on the Wheel of Time wiki, and then I stopped because I'm like, oh, I don't care about this guy that much. Um, but
He
it,
was always confusing.
yes, and it just no, they didn't get the right looking guy for it. Um,
He does look like a credible Isom.
trying to remember Isom.
Isom was the Dream World counterpart to Luke.
That I will accept.
It's like
Maybe
a
when we get to the Dream World version, that's going to be the guy in the breastplate, the long blonde hair, the lion
right.
cloak.
They just swapped him.
They just,
Oops.
yeah, they made a mistake. Oh, sir, sorry, wait, that guy's supposed to be in the real world. That was supposed to be the dream. Oh, dang it, the post-it note was upside down. Our fault, sir.
I thought it's interesting, Fail, how much she looks like the description and how little she looks like what I had in my head.
They got the nose right.
The nose and the tilted eyes.
The hair.
Mhm.
I pictured her taller.
I never did really. I always had the uh, impression that she was pretty short. I think she's shorter than Barrelane, who of course we haven't seen yet because we didn't go to tier.
Speaking of Fael, though, here was one thing I did have an issue with. I appreciate what the show is trying to do with the various accents,
Mm-hmm.
Fael included, but don't make them so accented that we can't understand what they're saying. Speak with an accent, fine, but enunciate.
Back off of it just a little.
Just a touch so I don't have to rewind the scene and turn on the subtitles just to understand you.
Yeah, I didn't really ever have trouble with her accent. It put me out a little bit at first, but then I was thinking back to the description of the Chaldeans. I'm like, you know what? Based on the description, they are kind of sounding a little Ottoman Turkish.
Mm-hmm.
So that accent fits, sure.
The two people have had the hardest time with the accent. Second was Fail. First one, Avienda.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what she's saying half the time. And just to my ears, she does not sound like Bane and Chiad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could be because they come from different tribes. You know, they're all three maidens of the spear, and I'm perfectly fine with different tribes having different accents, but figure it out. Or don't have Avienda speaking under her breath every other sentence.
I don't think that we're going to get away from that. That's kind of a salient point of her character. uh, Perrin's Taviran scene. I liked it and I disliked it. I don't think that it kind of felt awkward. And I think that it's been quite a while since we heard that word Taviran.
Mm-hmm.
It's not yet been spoken in this season. I don't, maybe once or twice in season 2. And the more casual fans, especially those who haven't read the novels, I don't think that they remember that Perrin is this Taviran thing or what that means. I think
right from the beginning, it's explained to the reader in Eye of the
mm-hmm.
World. One, a person being Taveran is incredibly, incredibly rare. 3 people being Taveran, all born within months of each other in the same town, the odds
Mm-hmm.
are beyond astronomical. And yeah,
And
it was.
Jordan took time to explain it over and
Mm-hmm.
over, kind of too many times.
Yes.
But
But now we've swung in the opposite direction too far.
mm-hmm. I think Loyal should have commented on it.
I
think that
agree.
would have been a really easy way to remind people about that
In
phenomenon.
fact, they even could have made a moment of after it all ended. Lo would be like, "Did you forget your Taveran?"
something like that.
Yes.
Or muttering out to File, because this is the kind of thing that Loyal would have a kind of possessive pride about. Oh, did you know my friend is Taverin?
I did like when the sisters, and this was actually done in episode 2, I believe, where
They
they,
tried to persuade him to play Maiden's Kiss.
yes, well, then when Matt says, "I will have a part of that," absolutely, he's like, "I will get my parchment and quill because he's going to write down the rules." He's like, "A new game, yay!" He's like, the look on his face is, "What's happening?"
I think we've spent enough time in Copland talk.
Almost. I've got
You have one more?
one more. I'll get through it quickly. Tanchico, aka Fantasy New Orleans. I did not like it. Uh, Mostly, I didn't like how everyone looked. They were trying too hard, way too hard. I mean, really sloppy costuming here. We see top hats. This, back to the Abraham Lincoln reference. I saw a guy in a top hat, a modern cut vest, shirt, shorts, and just the costuming everywhere was. Did y'all go to the church's rummage sale in Louisiana to get your costuming for this? Because it looks like it. It looks like it.
Okay, I want you to go to the costuming department and find all of the stuff that nobody has touched in 15 years.
Yes.
We're going to use all of it.
All of it. You each choose 3 things, and we're going to focus the camera on you. Top hat, vest, done. Perfect. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Buy some stuff with a guy so fat his belly has gone over his shorts. So that's Tanchico in a nutshell. Moving on. So on to changes in the pattern. We, as you said earlier, we finally get to see some Forsaken together, and one of them mentioned about I just forgot her name. The female Forsaken we've seen the most.
Mogadian.
No, the other one.
Oh, Lanfear?
Lanfear, thank you. I kept my mind was stuck on Leandrin, and these names, man. Again, these names. Someone mentioned if she was wanting to be Nageless or Nabless.
Mm-hmm.
That concept hasn't been mentioned yet. Not at least not in the books. I think that came up much later, didn't it? Or am I wrong?
I think they started talking about who was going to be Nabless in the Fires of Heaven, if I remember right. So it's not too far off, but it is a little earlier than was in the books.
So my other question for you, with your much deeper knowledge of the lore than I have, who was considered of the Forsaken the strongest female? Was it Mogideon?
No, the strongest in the power was definitely Lanfear.
Okay.
She was stronger even than most of the men.
Just wondering why everyone is like playing like just have there's a bit of fear involved.
Yeah, they're all nervous about Mogadian because she's super sneaky.
That's fair.
And she has a personal beef with almost all of them.
And even if she's not the strongest, she's still one of the Forsaken, so that's pretty darn strong.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of strong eyes to die, back to Tanchico. Shall we talk about the Red Ajah wedding?
If you're like really dead set on talking about it, I suppose we could.
No, I'm not. I was just really proud of the reference I came up with.
I'll allow it.
And well, let's face it, it's also very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I seem to have gotten some Game of Thrones in my Wheel of Time.
Yep.
I did like the scene though because it did show just how dangerous and untethered Elaida Sedai could be.
Yeah. And it helps us really establish, these are not going to be sympathetic villains.
No.
I mean, as much as Leandrin's like, oh, poor Leandrin, her elderly son has died.
Mm-hmm.
She's horrid.
Yeah. But from there, we, as I said before, we see Perrin's return to Two Rivers. I love Two Rivers folk. I really
Hmm.
do. And I love so far how they've been portrayed uh, in this series. There was a bit of hit or miss in season one. Match dad. But I don't know who it was. I think it was Egwene's mom who, after someone was saying that Perrin didn't belong and that Perrin was weird, his eyes, you know, uh, you know, you, you're weird. I don't know what to make. You're odd. You're strange. So are you, Senbu. And if you don't shut your mouth, I'll tell you what. Like, come on, stand up and clap. Like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You tell him.
Hmm.
It is. I mean, that was straight out of the book. That whole
Yes.
scene.
And I think she probably says that just by reflex whenever he opens his mouth.
Shut your mouth, Senbui. I also really like that we finally get Perrin in a blacksmith shop, in a
Yes.
smithy. We don't actually see him put hammer to metal, but I think he works the forge a little bit, and he's got an apron on. So I mean, hey, we're
Yeah.
halfway
I'm
there.
fairly sure that the safety people were saying, no, no, you cannot actually forge metal on the set.
Which I imagine that actor be like, but come on, it's my carrot. Come on.
We don't even let you have a candle, much less glowing hot metal.
But I'm supposed to have a blacksmith's hammer and an axe. We'll take the axe away again, Perrin. Keep it up.
Maybe if you're really good, we'll do some in CG.
There you go. You CG'd the last axe. Um, I already talked about Matt's duel. Um, how happy I was to see it.
Hmm.
I wish it had been a little longer. I know there's so much that has to be packed into these seasons, but if it had just been a touch longer, I'd have been happy. I felt like it could have it needed like another 20 seconds. Um,
20 seconds I could give you. I left it feeling like I want to see more, but if it had been longer, I would have started getting bored.
yeah, no, it could have gone that way. It needed to be just a touch longer. I'm not talking like another minute or two. Just even 20, 30 seconds. That was it. That I think that would have been perfect. A perfect amount of time. Um
I really liked the interaction between Elida and Min in this episode. I
yeah.
don't think they ever even encountered each other in the book. And it really nicely deepened Elida's character to have her treat another prophet with such respect,
Yeah.
even if she isn't Aes Sedai.
And it also brings up the point, which I don't think had been mentioned before, that Elida has the gift of foretelling.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like she had mentioned it in the previous episode, but maybe I'm
I may have missed it.
well. As we noted, I got the two episodes kind of mixed up, so it's what we get for watching too many before we record our
Yeah.
commentary. I'm and given that interaction happened, I'm kind of disappointed that she evidently got on the boat to Tanchico instead of staying in Tar Valon. Min, that is not Elida, obviously.
Obviously, yes. I was fine with it because I'm like, we've some of these characters, in my opinion, have been in Tar Valon way too long.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to get out there and let's get on with the story.
Yeah, it's again going to change her trajectory though, because she was supposed to be in Tar Valon for the coup,
Hmm.
so she's not going to be interacting with Gawain. She's not going to be helping to smuggle Swan and Leani out. She's definitely not helping to smuggle Logain out because he's in Kyrien for some reason.
Well, so much of what we were sure had to happen has never happened.
Mm,
So we'll just add this to the pile.
yep.
Um, my last little point was back to Fail. One, we've got Fail. So happy.
Yes.
One of my favorite characters. Her accent, I did not imagine her with a Russian accent, and I'm totally okay with it. I rather like it. But once again, enunciate, young lady. Speak clearly.
Yep.
Wake up every day going red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Well, everything will
I'm
be
not even
fine.
going to try that.
I
Although when I do an accent, it always wanders into Russian anyway, so maybe it would work out.
have noticed.
I talked for some theory crafting now.
Yes.
I did talk up the change in Abel Cawthon's story last time, and I'm hoping that we get some screen time for him being third best dad. I really anticipate that that's going to happen. They did a lot with Matt and Matt emulating his father at the end of season 2. That I really hope that we get to see the opposite side of that. That we're seeing Matt growing beyond what he thinks his destiny is. I hope we get to see Abel also growing beyond the horrible person that we saw in season 1.
Well, I think one way that they could justify it is that he's been on the run with the best dad, Tam Althor. So, if there's anyone that he can pick up some good parenting tips from, it's him.
Right.
So hopefully that some of that will rub off and be like, because they're on the run together. They're living fast and loose in the mountains and the woods, trying to stay one step ahead of the White
and
Clubs.
Perrin's family too. That's got to be some good role models.
Exactly.
Based on how much we love Perrin himself.
True. Very true. When we meet Perrin's dad, I'm expecting hair like 3 feet out from his head. Like I will be able to see him coming half a mile away through the trees. Unless it's his mom. I'm fine with that too.
Another prognostication concerns Sheriam, who has not been in the show this season, but in the novel, when the Gray Man attacked Egwene and Nynaeve, it was Sheriam who covered it up, not Varen. Yeah. And so between that and that bit from season 2 where she was confused about the novice book and then there was evidence of compulsion, I think that they have changed her plotline and she's actually going to turn out to not be Black Ajah.
Was it Sheriam in the books who was Black Ajah?
It was revealed kind of late, and it seemed to come out of left field.
Yeah. That
she had joined the Black Ajah purely for political reasons.
Okay.
And then got essentially blackmailed by Mokadian about it. Or no, it was Halima.
All right. I'm going to drop another possible major spoiler here, friends. If I recall, and I might take this out, isn't Varen also Black Ajah?
Yes. She was the spy, the one. She dedicated herself to the Black Ajah expressly for the purpose of betraying them.
Okay. A double agent. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And she was the one. She was the biggest mystery for me throughout the entire thing because she lied in book 2. It's like, how did she lie? She must predate the Oath Rod.
She's just really old.
See, I thought she was 1,000 years old.
Ah. Yeah, at this point, I'm sure the listeners are wondering, wait, is everyone a Black Ajah?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, they are. At one point, even Siun Sanchi herself goes, reveal your Black... Wait, you're a Black Ajah? I'm also Black... Wait, guys, everyone said, are all of us Black Ajah? Dang it. Girls, not again.
This is the problem with working in cells.
Yeah. Dadgummit.
It's no wonder we can't get anything done. We're always undermining each other.
So I'm not theory crafting that that's going to happen. But...
Well, I was definitely shocked at the very end of the series when we found out that Bella the horse was a dark friend.
He's not joking, friends.
Well, did we have anything more to say? Do you have any theories?
Nope. I'm scared to try at this point.
All right. Well, then sleep well and wake.